how do you actually go about creating a team for pretty much any sort of content. So if you just want to have a team that you can take with you as an all-rounded team into any quest, maybe going into it with events or for story or challenge quests, anything, how do you actually go about creating a team that is decently enough to beat everything? So before we go into this, of course, it kind of depends on what sort of characters you actually have. So I'm going to, for now, just been going with examples that show characters that are available to pretty much everyone. So you don't need to worry about having just exactly these kinds of characters. You can basically just take any sort of character that is low rarity but uncaps to 5-star for starters. For example, Yachio, Tsuruno, Nanaka, Asuka, Oriko. There's a whole bunch of these, Kaide, Hinano, there's a whole bunch of them that you can use for these. And we're just going to see how well they fit into these teams. And before we actually go and put these onto our team, that's a very important question that we need to ask ourselves. What sort of strategy do we actually want to do? And I don't mean to actually plan it out in full detail, but more so, well, do you want to blast all day, or do you want to play some Excel discs and get some Magia out? Maybe you want to have some mix of that. Maybe you want to have a charge team, although I'm not going to go into charge teams, because let me put it this way. There is not a single quest in this entire game where charge teams are the best. It's usually either Excel teams or blast teams or a mix of those. So that's basically the reason why I'm not going to go over charge teams now. But of course, if you want to, you can just build a charge team. No worries about that. Now, we do actually need to figure out now if we, for example, say we want a blast team, what sort of characters actually have a lot of blast discs. And in order to help with that, I have the wiki, the fandom wiki right here, where towards the top you can look at this button right here that says detailed list. Click on that, and then on the right you click on card set, and it will basically sort them all by their card set. At the very top, and the first few characters, you see they're all blast gorillas. They all have 3 or more blast discs. Then after that we have a mix of blast and charge disc characters. After that we have characters that are users, characters that are charge gorillas, no worries about those. There's some very cute characters in there. Then we have characters that are mixed Excel and blast. Then we have characters, of course, the only ones that are left are Excel and charge. And at the very tail end, the Excel gorillas that are going to be important later. For now though, let's just go with blast gorillas. So for blast gorillas, you can just take any of these ones if you don't have any SSR, like any natural 4-star, where, by the way, I need to mention that the blue background means they are limited, as in if they are not currently in a gacha, you can't get them, and red means they're always available in any gacha. You just have to be lucky to get them. And we see, for example, Yachiro is a natural 2-star, Asuka a natural 3-star, for example. Now, when you build this blast team, you can also just go, okay, I'm not going to go and put only blast gorillas on my team. Yeah, you can just take some that have 2 blast discs as well. So you can basically mix and match a lot. So even if you say, I want to have a blast team, you can still take almost every character in the game with you. But they should have at least like 2 blast discs, because otherwise you're just gonna get too many discs that aren't what you want to do. Like, we want to be blasting, so let's not take a character that has like 3 charge discs or 3 XL discs and has at least 2 blast discs, so we can go in there and be nice with that. So now that we know some of the characters we want, and we have this entire list to help us with that, we can switch back over to the game. Of course, like I said, it depends on what you have, and we're going to do the following. First of all, I'm going to blow some of your people's minds. You can actually move where the support slot goes. You can actually just do that. Anyway, since I'm going to be using some water characters because I want to, not because it has any sort of meaning to it, I'm going to put my support on the light slot. This is the Tercio formation, by the way. If you just started the game and you don't have the Tercio formation, don't worry about it. Just take Brave Echelon and put your strongest character in the middle. It doesn't really matter for now. For the actual team building, just take whatever just buffs your team the most, which will either be, if you don't have Tercios, Brave Echelons, and if you have any Tercio, it will be a Tercio, because the Tercios are basically the best formations in the game for no matter what you do. Even if you can only, even if you only have one good light character and nothing else, it's still better to take the any light Tercio over Brave Echelon. Like, as soon as you have any Tercio, just don't ever use anything but Tercios ever again, because they're so good. Anyway, so we know some of the Blast Gorillas that we can use. So for example, I'm just going to use Nanaka and Yachio, definitely not biased in any sort of ways towards strong characters. And now that we have some characters, you're wondering, why am I not putting more characters on this team? So here's the thing, the more characters you have on your team, the less likely it is for you to draw exactly the discs that you want. So what we want is we want strong characters to get all of the blast discs. If I were to put more characters on here, let's say if we put a character on here that, for example, only has 2 blast discs, so let's say we put another character on here, just any character, even, yeah, whatever, just any character. How likely is it now that we draw 3 Nanaka blast discs, that we draw 3 Yachio blast discs, and that we can then, the turn afterwards, user connect either a Yachio connecting a blast discs to Yachio, or Yachio connecting a blast disc to Nanaka? That has just gotten a lot less likely. And what do we do if we get discs for Oriko? Well, Oriko isn't that strong compared to the rest. Konoha is not that strong because she only has 1 slot, so her discs aren't going to be very powerful either. So it seems like the more characters we put on our team, the less consistent our team becomes. And usually, what is the sort of meta, is that 3 characters are just the best. Now, of course, these are just 2 characters, but that's because we are forced on every single PvE quest to take a support character with us. That's why you take 2 characters of your own, which on the bright side means that you only need to have 2 really strong characters of your own, and you already are being almost 100% efficient. I say it's not completely 100%, like if you're a whale, if you actually do have 4 amazing characters, then it actually does become a little bit better to use all 5 characters because of active memoria slots. But for most people, 3 characters is going to be the most efficient way to have a team. So now we have a bunch of characters on the team, but like I said, this is just an example. You can mix and match these. You also don't need to go for full blast gorillas. You can also just take a character in there like Tsuno, for example, who has 2 blast discs. That's totally fine as well. The general goal is just to have the most blast discs out of any of these other discs, so that we are most likely to be blasting all day. That is basically just the goal for this sort of team. And the reason also why this team is going to be pretty good in the end, so there is a reason why I picked these 2 characters, is because these have really good connects. We can just look at their connects right here in their skills tab. What do you think of this plan? Connect, blast damage up and attack up, and remove debuffs. Remove debuffs is pretty good. So at some point, by the way, when I was talking about Nanaka, I erroneously said that she removes status ailments. She doesn't, it removes debuffs, which is the blue icon buffs, not status ailments. Status ailments are the purple icon buffs, debuffs. But yeah. She also gives attack up and blast damage up. She has one of the best connects in the game, but since we are being blasters, having someone who gives blast damage up is really good. This is also, by the way, why Tsuruno is also pretty good for blasting, because she also gives blast damage up and attack up both on her connect, so they're really good for blast teams. Moving back though, now we have these characters and we say, okay, I want to use these characters in my team, but we need some memoria. So memoria, we can do something similar to what we did with the team selection. Is basically, if you watch any of my other videos, you probably know by now that attack up is the best way to increase your damage, especially in PvP. However, this team that I'm building will be for PvE, and in PvE, while attack up is still better than other damage sources, you still kind of want to have a sort of mix. You want to have a lot of attack up, but still some of the other stuff for maximum potential. So first off, we want to have some way to get attack up. Pretty much every single character that you take with you that is supposed to deal damage should have some attack up source. So let's say we even have 4 characters. Every single character that we take with us that is supposed to deal damage, that's like a full damage dealer, not a tank, not a support, not a healer, not anything like that, but a full damage dealer should have at least 1 attack up memoria. That is basically the way that I approach this. So the first step will be an attack up memoria for both these characters. So I clicked on in here on the attack up, which gives us a list on every single source of attack up in the entire game, which is quite a lot. But we're going to scroll down to the memoria. Once again, blue ones are limited. If they're not currently running, you can't get them. Red ones are permanent, unlimited, they're always there, and green ones are special because they're personal memorias. Also keep in mind, by the way, that on the wiki this one also includes memoria that are also on the Japanese server and maybe not on the North American server, like for example one of the probably the best personal memoria in the entire game by far. Don't worry about this one, it looks insane because it is insane. Don't worry about that right now, but we need to have any of these memoria that is a passive memoria. Don't worry about actives for now, actives come way later. Right now just passive memorias, which are memorias with this blue icon in the top left that you see here. Those are passive memorias. We want to have basically any that gives a good amount of attack up and is passive. So for example, I already clicked on it actually. This one that released basically just a few days ago. If you're watching this on the day I released it, maybe in like 2 days ago. It gives attack up 20% at max limit break, which is really good, but even without like max limit break, it's 15%. That's totally fine. Take one of these. For example, this is an unlimited memoria. You can scroll around and find some other ones. This one just gives 5%, which is not enough. We're looking for at least like 15%. I Made Friends, a really good example, gives 15% to 20% on max limit break. Absolutely amazing. This is a really good memoria, one of the best memoria in the entire game. And one other one, give me, where is it? I can't type. Cubey Knight is also another top one. Only use this one if you've maximum broken it, but if you've completed all of the Rico event, you will have this one maximum break, and at maximum break, this is one of the best memoria in the game too. So these are some of the ones that we can use. If you don't have the 4 stars, it's okay, you can use a 3-star as well. As long as it has like somewhere between 15 and 20, it's totally fine. So now that we know some of the memoria that we want to use, we're going to go in here into the equipment for memoria, and we switch around. There we go. And we're just going to pick some of the ones that we saw. For example, here we have Cubey Knight. That's just going to be the first one that I put right here. And over here we have another one that we can use. Sword is one that you can use, for example. So it's like some I can't talk right now. Let me put some friends on here. That's great. So now we have the base. This is basically the base to all of what we are doing. Now these characters have potential. Now we've unlocked their potential. But now we need to actually make use of that potential by adding some damage buffs. You could potentially, if you wanted to, add another attack up buff on there. You can totally do that. But for now, like I said, we want to have some sort of a mix. And something else that you need to keep in mind is, for example, if you want to go like completely in depth, like this is not something that you have to worry about too much. But if you want to like completely have the 100% efficiency, you need to take the connects into account as well. So for example, Nanaka, her connect gives attack up. Attack up stacks additively with itself, but only up to 100%. So this attack up, I think, is like 40%. I don't have the correct number right here. Let's just say it's 40%. If I'm wrong, whatever. Let's just say it's 40%. The friends that we put on here, that's another 20%. So we're already at 60%. So if we had another attack up on top of 60%, that's not gonna do a whole lot. So Yachio is already looking pretty good on attack up, right? We don't really need to put that much more attack up on Yachio. She's gonna be at 60%, is already like pretty darn good, man. What is Yachio's correct? It's blast damage up and critical chance up. There's no attack up coming from here, so since Nanaka is still only at 20%, even when she gets connected, we could put another attack up on Nanaka. So this one gives, we have blast, we have crit, and then we also have another attack up, memoria. That would be absolutely amazing as well. Also something to note is critical hit chance does not stack. Whatever source you have that gives the highest crit chance, that one just works. So for example, if you had friends, I think, which gives like 25% crit chance, and then you get connected, for example, and you get something that and the connect gives 80%, then it will just be 80%, and the friends will basically be deactivated for this turn. That's how that works. So that actually also works out perfectly because we have the friends on Yachio, so she doesn't need so she has the crit chance, but more importantly, Nanaka doesn't have the crit chance. But if Nanaka gets connected by Yachio, she gets the crit chance. So because Nanaka gets crit chance from connect, she does not need to have the friends because she's going to get it through the connect. Like I said, this is all just theory crafting that goes really far in depth. Don't worry about all the stuff that I just said for the last few minutes. More importantly though, let's put some other damage sources on here. So what other damage sources can we put on there? We can have some other damage modifiers. So there is, for example, damage inflicted up. That's one thing you can totally do that is really great. What else can we do? Let me scroll down here. We can put damage up and damage increase. It's basically the same, it just looks different. The differences between the two are very minimal and they're totally not worth talking about here. Just know that they're basically the same. What else can you do? There's one other one that is rather important back up here, especially for this team, which is blast damage up. And I think apart from that, that's just it. We're going to see some more later. There's also critical hit, but let's not worry about critical hit right here, because mostly it's just having friends. I made friends or not. I forgot to switch over. It's okay, I could put it. I'm gonna superimpose it in post, basically. Don't worry about that. So once again, we're on this page that shows up the blasted damage up, and what we're just gonna do is we're gonna go all the way down here to the memoria once again, and we're gonna look at just what sort of blast damage up sources there are. One thing to note, in case you're not quite, you don't quite know about this yet, blast damage up and damage increase, they're all basically in the same pot. Like, they all basically do exactly the same, with the only difference that damage up and damage increase increases all damage, and blast damage up increases only blast damage. That's literally the only difference between them. Literally the only difference. Like, blast damage up might as well be called damage up in brackets, but only for blast. That's literally the only difference. And if you're wondering how all of these stack, they all stack additively. So for example, if a connect gave 20% blast up and 10% damage up and 10% damage increase, it would just add them up. Like 20 plus 10 plus 10 is 40%. 40% damage bonus. That's how all of these damage buffs work. So this is why they're all basically the same. Just don't worry about which exactly of these. Of course, blast up only works for blast, so you should only use these on characters or in places where you know that there's going to be a lot of blasts and you can all blast all the time. But another thing to worry about is, because blast up memorias and like connects usually give a lot of blast up, you need to worry about the cap, because you can only get up to 100% blast up, and Nanaka Connect gives like 80% already. So you might be thinking, you might have thought before that, hey, wait a second, on this team, since we're blasting all day, we're going to put blast up memoria, right? No, we're not going to use blast memoria on this team, even though it's a blast up, even though it's a blast team. Why? Because both of these characters give blast damage up on connects. Both of these characters give blast damage up on connects, so we're gonna way overcap if we use blast up memoria. So instead, we're going to use damage up memoria. That's basically the idea here. So don't worry about blast up, we're going to use damage up memoria instead. So we're just going to go to both of these lists and basically consider both of them equally, because they're both the same. So for example, we have, this one's not on NA yet, damage increase, what's it called on NA, damage inflicted up, doesn't have that many interesting memoria, like this one about to leave in Haregi. It's limited, so not that many people actually have it. A lot of these other ones aren't even on JP, like the good ones, like I Won't Forgive You, Open It, that one isn't even on JP. So once again, not really too much important stuff here, but at least on the damage increase, there's actually some stuff that is interesting. For example, if you only have this one, this is an okay source for it, because it gives 15% max limit break, and it's a 3-star memoria that you probably just have some lying around maybe. But more importantly, the poster child for this sort of memoria is My Bible, also one of the best memoria in the game, because it gives a 25% damage increase, and it also gives anti-curse, and curse is one of the strongest status elements in the game, so being immune to the strongest status element in the game is pretty good. So you basically see that, you basically see a bunch of other ones that are going to get released at some point. So now we have some damage up sources. Let me see how many of those I actually have if I go back into the game. So on one hand, for example, we've got the Bible. There's also another source that you can potentially take. I'm not quite sure where it is. I think it stands on art. Yes, this one. This is a very special effect. It damage up on enemies with status ailments. So basically, just like the other damage up effect, it's just a damage up, but in brackets, only against enemies with status ailments. Since this is something that is not going to be that useful most of the time because it only works on enemies that actually do have a status element on them, and there's not that many reliable ways to get a status element up all the time against every single enemy. This is not something that I would advocate for, but in theory you can potentially in some cases take it. But yeah, scroll down and get some Bibles in there. So I just have a Bible for both of them. That's just what I have. But like I said, it's different for everyone. Like if you played during the Kazumi event, you can take this one with you as well. But since you can't MLB this one is a bit sad. So yeah, this is, for example, a set that is quite alright. It kind of sucks that the Bibles are only level 1, like level 30, but I mean limit break 1, and they aren't any stronger than that. That kind of sucks. But apart from that, I think this is quite alright as a base to go off on. And more importantly, we know that in combat they're going to both buff each other with crit, they're going to buff each other with blast up, some attack ups in there, so the connects are really going to be absolutely amazing on this sort of team. So this team is looking almost ready. The only thing we need to worry about at this point is active memoria. So once again, since the connects give a lot of blast up, we probably don't want to actually put blast up actives on here, but what do we put on there instead? With actives, it's a lot more freestyle on what you can do. You can basically just go the same route that we've already done and say, hey, wait a second, let's get more damage increase. Like, we've only gotten the 20% from Bible. 20% is not a whole lot. Let's get more than that. And say, for example, let's put Splash Party on there with 40% damage increase. Let's look at some other stuff. Past and Future is pretty good because it also gives some defensive stats. With damage increase 30%, also pretty good. But yeah, you can basically just look at the same stuff and just look at the actives instead of the passives. That's totally fine as well. Here, damage of 30%, that works as well. But there also are some other active memoria that are really important to note, especially once we go into really difficult quests. Because once you go into really difficult quests, there's basically just one memoria that you want to have on absolutely every single character in your team. So the very first thing that I would tell you when you create your team is to take all the Mitorains that you have and just spread them around. I combined them because I used that for a level 3, a turn 3 active on mirrors. Ignore this is just for mirrors. But usually you don't want to actually combine your Mitorains and just take limit break 1 Mitorains on everyone if possible. Since I did this specifically for mirrors, I don't actually have another Meteorrain that I can use for this. But yeah, like, this is number one thing. Just use Meteorrain on it. Just use Meteorrain on everyone. It's like the best active in the entire game, maybe even the best memoria in the entire game. Meteorrain everyone. That's the one thing. So what else can you use? Like I said, it's more freestyle because actives are more just about, you can use actives in multiple ways. You can say, I'm going to use them as a damage increase. So for example, if I know that a character that I'm attacking with has a lot of attack, but not a whole lot of damage up, you can just slap another damage up on there. Or if the character doesn't have any blast up, but they're blasting, you just slap a blast up on there. Whatever you still need, you just slap on there. Apart from that, you can also just slap some utility on there if you want to. For example, you can have HP regen and tank stuff or whatever. Or this one is also pretty popular. It gives defense down and curse, which is really awesome. You can do some damage inflicted down. Since I don't have a second Meteorrain, I'm going to use a Negotiator for some damage down, for example. So this just gimps your opponent really hard. And if you're going into really difficult challenge quests, having something that destroys your opponent's damage is really good. So this is also fine. And like I said, I want some more damage, so I'm going to put some more damage up in here. But you could also just slap some curse on there. Really just take whatever you think your team needs. That's basically what I'll say about actives. Just take what you think your team needs. So for example, this is Nanaka. Nanaka gets a whole bunch of attack. I could get some more attack up on Nanaka actually. So we're going to do this. And we're going to slap a bunch more damage up on Yachio with this one. And that's that. That's what you can do, for example, as a team. Now, to go a bit more into what else you can do, I'm going to go into now as an Excel team. Like, blast teams are pretty straightforward. Blast teams really are just unga bunga damage, and then you deal damage and kill everything instantly, and you don't have to worry about anything else. This is a team that does ridiculous amounts of damage in PvE, and just slices and dices through probably most content, if not all content. This sort of team can probably even deal with most EX challenges. The only thing you have to worry about is typing. Like if you're playing an EX quest where there's an enemy that's really strong that is of forest type, of course you're gonna have trouble. But you can always just use different characters as well. But just in general, low budget teams, you can't really go much better than this. Just in general. So now about Excel teams, or just in general, what other kinds of teams can you make? I can just show some team that I usually go with. Where is it? This is my standard team that I just go with. You might be wondering why am I on Tercio if I didn't actually put a water type down, and it's just because Tercio is better than Brave Echelon, even if you don't actually make use of the Tercio spots. And if I take a water type support, it actually works out. But yeah, this is like the general team that I take. I just have Blast right here. Let's go super duper Blast with some damage up, with some critical and attack up, of course, from friends. Over here we have a similar deal where we have like an attack up passive from Cube Knight, and then another Bible on top of that for the damage up. By the way, I didn't actually look at this team before starting this video. I just sort of hoped that I was following my own advice and didn't look like an idiot because I didn't follow my own advice. But yeah, I did follow my own advice actually in here. And now one thing to notice, on this team I did actually pick some blast ups as an active because this team doesn't have connects with blast up. Like if Ren connects over here, there's just no blast up on this connect. So I need blast ups. So I just put a blast up active on Tart or Dark, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that we have some blast up. Yeah, it's like my general purpose team that I use. This is a blaster team. This is a very much blaster team. When I go into a quest, I'll take another character that has at least 2 blast discs, probably 3, and then we have a majority of blast discs very easily, and we can blast all day, every day, and be really nice about it. And if I want to, I can take a character that has some Excel discs, and maybe I want to do some Excel shenanigans. But for now, let's talk a little bit about Excel discs and just in general some other teams you can make. Because the thing about creating some teams is you can pretty much do a whole lot of what you want as long as you have some guidelines that actually sort of make sure that your team isn't terrible. One guideline would be, and it really does sound like I'm memeing quite hard on this, but don't take too much charge with you. Like even if you really like charge, the idea about charge is that it makes other discs stronger. If you don't actually have other discs or characters with other discs that you can make stronger, then what is even the point of the charge disc? Like imagine if you get 3 turns, only charge discs straight, and the boss is still having almost full HP because you haven't actually used the charge discs, the charge points. And if you watch the charge point video, you know that the more charge points you have, the worse they actually get. So you only want to be at like 2 or 3 charge discs before using them. Like the best way to use charge discs is you go to like 2 or 3 and then use them. Then 2 or 3 again, then use them. That's basically the most efficient way to use charge discs. Going to high charge points doesn't actually matter, which is usually why charge teams are usually not that great, because you don't want to go to high charge points, because it's actually less efficient to go to high charge points. Anyway, just as an aside for people really want to make charge teams, is that you still don't want to have too many charge discs. But you can't have too many blasters, and you can't have too many Excel discs. That's the good part about Excel and blast teams. You really just can't have too many of them. But yeah, speaking about some other types of teams, let's say for example we want to have some all-rounded team that maybe goes a little bit into Excel. So our next goal will be, let's make a team that I can have another free space for this somewhere here. I'm just going to do this one on Brave Echelon, and what sort of team we want for this one is that we want to have a team that can use some Excels to get some Magia, but on quests where we don't need Magia, maybe we have some blasts in there as well, just a handful of them. But on quests that become very difficult, maybe you want to go in some challenge quests that are really difficult, maybe some EX challenge quests where maybe you're just blasting all day. While it can be really effective, might not be what is going to win us the game. So let's throw in some other stuff into the mix. So we're just going to use some characters who are maybe a little bit between Excel and Blast. Maybe we're going to put a character in there who is actually an Excel gorilla. So we're just going to start off with that. One thing that we need to sadly realize is that there's no good free Axel gorilla. There's like 3 or 4 different free, really awesome blast gorillas in the game that you can just use, which makes it really easy to build good blast teams. But if you want to have like a free Axel gorilla, what even is there? There's like Rika. I'm gonna look at it very quickly. Let's go through this journey together. What even is there for good free characters that you can just use? There's Rika. There's Rika, and she's not even 5-star. It's okay, don't worry about this. Like I said, if you join for Excel team, maybe we're just going to go and get characters who are like mixed, who have like 2 Excel discs only, because the game really doesn't like free Excel characters for some reason. Yeah, I'm sorry, the developers just really like Blast. The developers absolutely love Blast, and they don't really care about a whole lot of other stuff. It's true. But yeah, that's just for all intents and purposes. I'm just going to use an SSR who only has like 1 slot maybe. Don't I have a better one than this? I have Mitama, but Mitama also only has like 1 slot. We're just going to take Rika, I guess. Just imagine that Rika is only 1 slot too. I'm sorry guys, there's only 1 slot. But yeah, we can also go mixed. So this is also something that, I know it sucks for as an example, but this is probably something that a lot of people have to worry about themselves. Like if you're looking at your own team, you might also notice, wait a second, I don't have any good Excel gorillas with multiple slots. That just happens. You don't have all the characters available at all times, so you need to just have some different characters. One character who is really good with both Blast and Excel, and actually has a good niche in both of those discs, who has a good Magia with good effects, a decent, actually pretty good connect, who can Blast, who can Excel, who can do all of that, is actually the most powerful, mighty girl in the game. Tsuruno is absolutely amazing in these sort of mixed teams between Blast, between Excel, who has the capability of excelling really good. So who else are we going to take onto this team? If you wanted to, I was about to say Mami, but Mami only has 1 blast disc, which is not quite what we want. I think it's only 1 blast disc. Yeah, so she's not quite what we want. What else you can take with you? For example, right here we have Kaede. Kaede is quite good in that sense as well. Maybe you want something that isn't quite supposed to just be elements that have weaknesses. Maybe you want something that's like dark type, or maybe you want to have something that's light type. Doesn't have to worry too much about this. If we want to go more into the Magia sort of way, you can go in here as well. You can pick up an Oriko. It sucks that she only has 1 blast disc, but this sort of team would go really deep into Magia, because like I said, we don't have that many blast discs, but at least we have a bunch of Excel discs, and both of these characters have pretty good Magia. So this is something that you can maybe do. I couldn't just talk about this for a really, really long time, because this is just something you look at your characters and you go, okay, which of these characters do I have 4 slot, or which of these characters level 100 and 4 slot, and what sort of discs do they have, what sort of connects do they have, and how can I fit them together. One thing that I need to tell you guys is don't mix and match too hard with stuff that doesn't work together. Getting a character, for example, let's say we take an Axel Gorilla, and let's say on top of that, we put another character that is a Charged Gorilla. This sort of team just won't work very well, because Charge doesn't work very well with Axel. Axel only gets a little bit of bonus from Charge, so the Charged Gorillas doesn't really help the Axel Gorilla that much, and the Axel Gorilla will be hindered by there just not being that many Excel discs. So you have less Excel discs, which means that your Excel Gorilla can't excel, and your Charge discs aren't actually improving your Excel discs that much. Like, this is the kind of team that I would say is actually pretty terrible. So you can do a whole lot of stuff with your teams, but you should make sure that they don't hinder each other like this sort of team would. This sort of team, Excel Gorilla and Blast Gorilla, also not that great, because they both want to do their own thing. And this is sort of also something that you guys should take away. Have a strategy that your team can follow, and not 2 strategies that are jumbled together. This team can blast and it can excel, but it can do neither of the 2 particularly well. And the 2 characters are basically fighting with each other more than they're fighting against the enemy to do that. Like, Karen is going like, give me the Excel discs, and Nanaka will be like, give me the blast discs, and they all just gonna hinder each other. It's not gonna do much. It's gonna be terrible. So maybe we can switch in this instead. This is a better team. Like I know characters, people will be like, oh, but Nanaka is such an amazing character. Nanaka is a way better character than Konoha. I say that as well. Yeah, but if you really want to use a Karin on the team, you pair that with a Konoha, because Konoha's discs just work better. She has 2 Excel discs. And she also gets Excel MP up on her Connect to make it easier to get some Magia in there. Get some of the same stuff. You want to mix some of the same stuff together. Now for Excel teams, of course, even for Excel teams, even for characters that are supposed to support, like for example, Konoha is a support. You don't need 2 characters that are both full 100% damage dealers. This is fine. A team like this is still totally fine. I mean, Konoha has more attack than Karin, but Karin is the Exile Gorilla who is going to have a lot easier time to actually get her own Magia off with that. And in general, Konoha's Connect is more about healing and making sure that other people get Excel MP up. So that's usually why I would say that she's a support, even though she actually has more attack. It's just that her kit is just more about supporting someone else, where Karin's kit is more egotistical, I would say, in just having so many Excel discs. I mean, of course, Excel combos help everyone, but they also help the character who gets themselves, of course, a lot more. And her Magia is also a lot more potent. Anyway, but yeah, you can just do stuff like this, where you have 1 damage dealer, 1 support. That's totally fine. I would say not to take 2 characters that are both supports or both tanky characters, because the damage is gonna come from somewhere, unless you're gonna have like outlasting teams like Double Madoka, which is like only there to outlast enemies. They're basically like Double Merlin or something, like outlast the enemies so hard they can't kill you. But it's gonna take like 500 turns. Could work. I mean, it does work. It's just, it's boring. It takes like forever, dude. Anyway, so you can have stuff like this. And as I was about to say, once again, on these kinds of teams, even if you have supports, give all of them at least 1 attack up memoria to have a lot of potency behind their attacks. And then on top of that, with Excel teams, you don't have to go to damage up, you can go to Excel up as well. If you go back to the overview, you can just give them Excel MP up, for example. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do in here as well. Some memoria in here actually give both Excel up and a little bit of damage, which is really good. Let me see if I can find one. There's actually one that is very new. It's an active memoria. This is actually one that is coming up at the end of the year, sadly, but this one is absolutely amazing for Excel Gorillas because it gives damage increase and Excel MP up. Absolutely great. For active, there is a Sayoki active, I think, somewhere, that gives basically the same. It gives basically the exact same, just as an active and not as a passive. So that is also something that you can take with you, especially if you're playing the game right now and you might have rolled the gacha, you might have actually gotten this one. It's this one, but that's basically the same thing, just as an active. But yeah, this is basically also what you do with Excel teams. You just give them Excel MP gain up, but for the most part, they kind of follow a very similar structure than Blast teams. They're just a bit more open towards other stuff. You can mix and match a bit more with these, but not too much. I've rambled on for a really long time and I've kind of missed the point in a lot of cases, but you know what, that just happens. I did get the important stuff out there, and I hope you were able to take at least some of the stuff away from this video to help you build better teams. But yeah, that's basically about it. Leave a comment below if you have anything to add to this, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and I hope you guys see you guys next time.